Hi there, today we are going to learn how to make the game Flappy Bird here on Scratch. And not only will we get to make a fun, popular game, but we will also learn some important skills while we make this game, such as learning how to create a scrolling effect like a 2D platform game, and also having a realistic gravity effect. And we are also going to learn how to use Sprite Sheets so we could import sprites that look just like the real ones of the games that we are making. So I'm in my Scratch tab right now, and I'm going to go back to Scratch eventually, but first I want to go over here. And this is a Sprite Sheet, and has all of the images and sprites that are used in Flappy Bird. The link to this is down in the comments, and we want to take these images apart so that we can import them into Scratch so that we can make a game that looks just like the one that they have on Flappy Bird in real life. So in order to do that, we're going to use what's called a Pixel Editor. And this is also linked to in the description. And this is an online photo editing tool. It's kind of like Photoshop, except it's free and it is online. So you don't have to install anything, and we'll be able to do everything right within our browser. So what I want to do is I want to go over here and I want to copy the URL. And I want to go over here, open image from URL, and just paste it right there. And there it is. And I am going to cut out these different sprites, and I'm going to save them as individual files so that we could upload them once we start our game in Scratch. And I want to make sure everything is nice and organized, so I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to make a new folder called Flappy Bird. And all of my sprites are going to go in there. Okay, so what we are going to do is that if you look over here, you can see this little magic wand tool. And this little magic wand tool selects things that are of a similar color. And you can see up here it says tolerance. If it is a very low tolerance, it will only select things that are very specific to that color. So if I do that, see how it's really fine and every little darkness is there. Is it Control D or Command D? I forget. Control D will deselect it. But if we go to a higher tolerance, this will probably select everything. Yeah, like that. So we want to make sure that the tolerance is relatively high. Like that. And this will be the first thing that we copy. So all I want to do is just Command C or Control C if you're using Windows and copy it. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to make a new image, and I want to make sure everything is named like it is in or so that it makes sense to me. So I'm just going to call this background, and you want to make this pretty big because it's easier to make the sprites smaller in Scratch than it is to make them bigger. So let's have especially the background. So the other ones might be a little smaller. Let's make this like 1800 by 1800. And this is very important when we're doing this with sprites. We want to make the background transparent, or it won't matter for the background, but for the other one, we want to make them transparent so that you don't see the background when you're using the sprites. So I'm going to go there. And I can see my transparent background. You could tell it's transparent by the little checkerboard design. If it is not transparent, it will be white, and you don't want to use that. And all I'm going to do is Command V or Control V and paste that right there. And now that doesn't look very big, and I want to make it much bigger so that when I import it in Scratch, it is big enough and I don't have to make it bigger in Scratch or lower the quality. So I am going to go to the free transform tool under the edit function there, and it is also Control T, which I will use from now on. But if we go to free transform, we will be able to make this as big as we want. And if you press shift while you're dragging it, it will stay constant so you don't distort the... There we go. Actually, I'm going to make this a little wider too. Okay. Press enter and all the changes will take effect. And beautiful. And now once you are done with that, you're just going to go to File, Save. And this is important. See how it's in JPEG right now? We don't want that because any transparency that we have will not show up in JPEG. It will just be a white background. So we want to click the little drop down menu and we want to go to PNG. All of these should be in PNG format, not in JPEG or anything else that it says. I'm just going to click OK. And I'm going to find my folder and save. And we're just going to do the same thing for, you don't need to save it because we're done, for all the ones that we're going to use. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to copy every single one of these. I'm just going to copy a couple. But when you make it, if you want to get more detail, that is totally fine. So I'm going to click the ground will be the next one. Just Command copy. New image. Ground. Let's have this like so. Make sure it's transparent. Okay. Okay, and Command V and Control T will do the free transform. And we just want to drag it all the way out so that it is as big as possible. Press enter and just do the exact same steps that we did before. Ground, JPEG, of course, no on the JPEG, PNG. Okay, and save. Boom, and I will just go through the ones that we're going to use. So we need both pipes, pipe down and pipe up. Make sure it selects all of it. Sometimes it might just go down there. If that is the case, if you press Shift and the other part, it will select everything. So Command C, new image. Boom. Boom. Okay, boom, Control T. This will become second nature after you do a couple of these. All right, and I want to save as pipe down. PNG. Yep. Okay, close out, don't save. Now we're going to select pipe up. Whoops. Control D, again, deselects. Command C to copy. New. This is a bit repetitive, but in the end it is worth it. This is going to be pipe up. And again, if you don't want to do all of this, you can also draw these sprites on your own and the game will be exactly the same, just not quite as aesthetically pleasing as if you do it like this. Transparent. Okay. Control T, make it bigger, enter. Once there's, I'm sure, Control S will save it as well. PNG, okay. My goal is not to make a mistake while everyone is watching here. Okay, so now we are going to pick 3 of the birds as well. And because the birds are kind of more detailed and more colored, that we're going to do a different way. We are going to pick this box right here. Sorry about that phone. And you really, actually before I do that, I should zoom in so you can see it well. Make sure it is Control D selected. And get the little box. I find it easier to do it with the box. And just make one around there. Okay, but it's the exact same motions as the previous one. This is going to be flappy wings up. And Command V, Control T. Make them nice and big. Like that. Enter, Control S, PNG. Okay. And Control deselect. Get the box around this one. So the reason that we're doing several of the birds is that so we can add animation effects, so it actually looks like the Flappy is flying. And that big. And what am I doing? Control T. Enter. S, PNG. Two more. Okay, get rid of this. Finally, Flappy Wings, deselect it. Flappy Wings down, get around him. And Command C. Oh, see, that's a mistake I made. That's what happens when you don't click transparent. You get that white background. Sorry about that. It's easy to mess these things up. Transparent, but make it bigger. There we go, that's better. Control T. And one more. So we have our three birds, we have the two pipes, and finally, just when we finish the game, we want this little game over. And Command C. There we go. And once you have these skills down, you'll find that if there's some kind of famous game that you want to try to recreate, these exist for just about everything. So this is a good skill to learn if you want to make your games more aesthetically pleasing. So now we are ready to finally start programming our game here in Scratch. So I am here at the main homepage, and I'm going to go to Create. And I always want to make sure that I name everything. So this is going to be Flappy Bird. And I am going to get rid of Scratchy because I don't need him. Now, so before we have chosen sprites from library and we have drawn them, this time we are going to upload the sprites from the file. However, the first thing I want to do is get my backdrop ready. So, whoops, I don't want to do it like that. I want to do the same thing, upload it from the file, and just see how we've labeled these all nicely. This will come in handy now. I'm going to click on background, and it's not going to quite be there. So, what we want to do is in vector, click the little square thing, and let's try to move it, get it like that, and just make it nice and big. And it will eventually come. You gotta mess around with it a little, but there we go. And we have our Flappy Bird background, and this is gonna stay the same the whole time. Now, we're gonna make a scrolling game, and what may look like the background in the game is actually going to be a sprite. And it's not going to be the bird that is moving throughout the game to make it look like it is scrolling. So the bird is not going to be moving right. The ground is going to be moving left, almost like a treadmill or something. So I want to go here, and I want to get my ground. And we'll see this right here. with the same thing as the background, you have to kind of fit this to make it nice. So let me see if I could. There we go. Perfect. Why is... Didn't quite get that background in there. Let me see if I can... Okay, and we're going to eventually put bars on these sides anyway, so that won't show up. Now that we've laid the groundwork, let's get the ground moving. I'm going to go, I'm going to click on ground here. And what I want to do is I want the ground to be moving over to the left. So if I go down here, I have this change x by whatever value. Right now it's in 10, but we could put any type of value that we want in there. I'm going to go to data, and I'm going to make a variable. I'm going to call this scroll. And I want to change x by whatever scroll is. If I go here to change scroll, I could change scroll by -1. And now, if scroll is being changed by -1, and we'll wrap this in a forever loop so that it is always happening, and x is being changed by scroll, I made a mistake here. Actually, we don't want to change x by scroll. We want to set x to scroll, or else it'll go very fast, and that won't be good. If we set x to scroll, and we're constantly changing scroll by -1, so this is -1, -2, -3, -4, the x position of the ground will slowly become negative, and you will see that it is moving over to the left. So let's get everything set up here. I need to wrap the top in a forever loop as well. And I am going to put when a green flag clicked and when green flag clicked. And now let's see how this works. And you can see that it just moves over to the left, and that if we had a single object around here, it would look like that object is moving to the right, when in fact it is the ground that is moving to the left. However, I'm sure you could also notice that there's just a huge canyon right here that is not being replaced by anything. So what we need to do is we need to duplicate this ground and make sure they are level. The x position doesn't matter, because we're going to change that. And you want to get rid of this. If you have change scroll by -1 here and change scroll by -1 there, that is adding up to changing scroll by -2, and that is more than we want, and is going to make it go twice as fast as what our intentions are. So get rid of that. And now we're going to use the operators for this. And I'm going to bring out plus. And the canvas of Scratch is about 475, 500 pixels or so wide from here to here. So what we want to do, we have one here, we have another here. And we're going to take scroll. And we are going to add 475 to it and put it back here. So now we have this one just doing whatever scroll is moving over to the left. We have the second ground. It is also moving over to the left. However, it is moved to the right another 475 pixels. So that while the first piece is moving to the left, the second piece is just following it, but a whole nother canvas length over to the right. And if the game that we're doing is going on forever, but if you were making a game like, say, Mario or something, in which it is not repeating on an infinite loop, you would and you wanted a background that is changing into something different all the time, you could just have another one here, and you would have this one's 475, this one's 0. If this one's 475, this one would be 950, and then you would add 470. This one would be 1425. Sorry if I'm wrong about that, and so on. So you would always have all of these moving to the right, but each one is being followed. They're moving to the left, but each one is being followed by another one that is progressively more to the right. So now I have set X to scroll plus 475, and you will see that this is going to look like it is one big thing here. Now what we can see here is, see how that doesn't line up? We need to fiddle around with the exact number that it's being moved over to. So that what do I want to do? I want to make that a little larger. Let's try 485. Set X to that. That's almost there. Let's try 487. Perfect. Oh, one thing I forgot to do is we need to set scroll to 0 at the beginning, so it resets every time. So let's try this, and this should go on for a while. And yeah, and then it eventually ends. And if you were to make a third piece of ground that is set X to scroll plus what's 487 plus 487, 974. 974, that would just follow this right here. And then if you had a fourth one that was 974 plus 487, whatever that happens to be, that would be way over here being followed like that. However, since we are making a game that has an infinite number of objects, and we just want to keep on going on forever as long as our player can stay alive, it's just not feasible for us to make an infinite number of grounds and just keep on going. So what we want to do, actually very much like a treadmill, is that we want to just reset this. What I'm going to do is we are going to just, when it gets up to 487, all we're going to do is set it back to 0. So it'll go up to 487, and then it will just go back to 0, up to 487, back to 0, just like a treadmill. So if I go back to the initial one, I want to get my operators. And when scroll equals negative 487, don't forget that negative. So if scroll equals negative 487, then we want to set scroll to 0. And now it will just keep on going around and around forever. So let's see if this works well. Yep. You see a little thing over here, and that's because in Scratch, for some reason, when you're doing a scrolling game, you can kind of see into the future. So what we're going to do later is that we're just going to add a little black bar over here so that you will not even see that. And if you did not know, you would never know that these are just two blocks being repeated over and over again. So that looks pretty good. Now what we want to do is we want to add Flappy into the game. So I'm going to upload the sprite, and I'm going to pick one of the Flappies, doesn't matter which one. And he's obviously much too big, so I'm going to make him smaller. That looks good. And I want to go to costumes, and I want to get all the costumes, so medium, and then up. And there's several things we want to do with Flappy now. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to change between the costumes so that it looks like his wings are flapping and he is actually flying. We obviously need to change the size of some of these. We also want to make the laws of gravity apply to him. We want to have that effect so that the game works and it also looks more realistic. And finally, we're going to have Flappy pointing up when he's going up and Flappy pointing down when he's going down, just like in the real game. However, the first thing I need to do is make sure these sizes are correct. So you could see that this and that look pretty good. However, it's this one in the middle that is smaller. So what I need to do is I need to convert this to vector, and then I need to click on that. Let's get that. Should I do it evenly on all? that looks pretty good. So let's go to scripts, and in looks, we have the next costume. And we want to go to wait 0.1 seconds in between, or else they'll all just blend together and we can't notice the difference and it won't look good. Forever, and when green flag is clicked, let's see how this looks. And there's still a little shifting there. Let's see if I can get this a little. Where is that? I'm going to try one. If I don't get it perfect here, it's fine. But let's move him back. Let's try this. Yeah, that's good enough. Okay. Now that we've done the costumes, let's do our gravity. So for gravity, in order to make this look realistic, we have to take into account Flappy's velocity. And in real life, velocity is changing. It's not constant. So we're going to have a variable here. We're going to call this variable gravity. And in the real world, you always have gravity pulling on you. So we are going to have a constant kind of just changing gravity by -1. Whatever is happening, it always wants to be dragging Flappy down, just like gravity is always trying to drag you down or anything down. I don't want to single you out, viewer, but okay. And forever change gravity by -1, and boom. And now what we want to do is we also want to have that little jumping motion. So while gravity is pulling Flappy down, he could also set an initial force that makes him go up and escape the claws of gravity. So if we press, let's do if-then statement, if space key is pressed, then we want to set gravity to 3. We want to do that forever. Okay. And finally, right now, all these variables are great. However, they have no impact on the movement of Flappy, so we need to make sure he's being changed. So we want to set Y to gravity. And so now if, or no, sorry, we don't want to set Y. We want to change Y. So if we press the spacebar, we'll change Y by +3. However, as soon as we have the initial force there and it's set to 3, the force of gravity will take over, and then it will go down. We'll be changing Y by 2, and then 1, and then 0. He'll be kind of at the apex of the peak of his jump there, and then he'll start to come down. So it's -1, -2, -3, -4, until he's falling even more forcefully down to the ground, until you press the space bar and get that 3 pixel jump there. So let's do forever. And so let's see how this looks. It's kind of so what we want to do, that's a little too strong. So let's wait 0.1 seconds in between him going down. So now he's going to go down a little slower. So let's try this again. And you can see that looks pretty good. Okay. What we also want to do is make sure he is starting out at a decent spot. So when the green flag is clicked, let's have him go there. And let's give the user a brief period of time before he actually starts falling. Okay. No, not that long. 0.2 seconds. Let's try that. Whoa. No, that did not work like I wanted it to. All right, let's do this up here. So now it'll wait 0.2 seconds before gravity kicks in. All right. Oh. I'm not. Oh yeah, we got to make sure you're setting gravity to 0, because it will just, right now it's at -4 and it'll keep on going. So there we go. Yeah, that's much better. See, that kind of eases the user into the game. Perfect. So now the last thing we want to do with Flappy is that we want to make it so that when he is going up, he is pointing up, and when he is going down, he is pointing down, and when he is just kind of steady, he is pointing just straight ahead. So I'm going to have several if statements here. I have 3 of them actually. If, and we're just going to have an equals, a greater, and a less than. And all of these are going to be with gravity. So if gravity equals 0, then we want him pointing just straight ahead. Where is that? Yeah. Just pointing 90 degrees. If gravity is greater than 0, so if he is going up, we want him pointing up. So that is going to be point in direction. I always forget which, if it goes up or down. Let's try 120, and we'll see if that's right later. And then if gravity is less than 0, so if he's in the negatives, he is pointing down. And let's wrap this in a forever loop. When a green flag clicked, and let's see if this looks correct or if we're going the opposite direction. Yep, we're going in the opposite direction. Okay. So we want this to be, no. Let's have this be 70, and this should be 110. There we go. You can see it looks a bit more like the real game like that. Perfect. Now for the pipes, I am going to draw a new sprite here. And you can see that it's just going to be blank. It's important to get this correct. I want to just make sure this sprite is going to the direct middle. So I'm going to make sure it's going to x0, y0, and just click that. And that's good enough. And I'm going to go to costumes, and I'm going to upload the pipe down. Actually, I'm just going to add it from here. Oops, no, sorry about that. I'm going to import it from here. There we go. I'm going to import the pipe up. And where'd it go? Let's try that one more time. I'm going to import the pipe up. There we go. Make sure it's convert the vector. Boom. Yeah, it's going to be big. Make sure it's a reasonable size. Oops. And I'm going to import the pipe down. And I'm going to do the same thing, making sure the size is correct. Bring it up. Zoom all the way out. I just kind of forgot to do that. And now this is quite important. We want to make sure that these are the same size so that it looks correct. So right now the top one's a little bigger. So let's... Nope, still a little bigger. Still a little bigger. Just one more. And that looks good. And now we're for the pipes, we're gonna have several different costumes, and you're gonna see that we're gonna pick random costumes, and that's gonna change the height of the pipe. So I want to do one costume that's gonna be up here at the top. Oops. Yeah, gonna make this a little longer. There we go. And make sure they're lined up correctly. All right, now that looks a little off. Okay, once you get that good, you can just duplicate it and do the same thing, but just kind of make that go down a little and make that go down a little. And you can make as many or as few of these as possible. The more options, the more probably enjoyable it will be for the user, and the more challenge it will have. I'll make probably 3 or 4. There we go. And then one here on the bottom. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Okay, so now, and we haven't worked with clones yet, but what a clone is basically is that it just takes your sprite and it makes another copy of it. So we're going to be able to just keep on having pipes come in and come in and come in without having to make 7,000 pipes down here. And in the same way that repeating these ground pieces helps just simplify our code and make it much more manageable, the clones are going to help us make our pipes just seem a lot simpler to use. So I'm gonna, still always have to start when green flag is clicked. But just when the green flag is clicked, all I'm going to do is I am going to create a clone. Where is that? I feel like that should be in events for some reason, but I'm going to create a clone of myself. And you go up here, and when I start as a clone, and this is the code that we are going to have. So we want our pipes to start over here. And quite simply, we just want them to start over here and then glide all the way over here, so that just like the ground is moving to the left, the pipes are moving to the left, everything is moving except for the bird, but it just looks like the bird is the one that is moving. So when I start as a clone, first we need to pick a random costume. So if you go down here to switch costume, and if you go over to costumes, you can see that they're all numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just go to the operators and pick random 1 to 4, and it will randomly pick one of those costumes to start from, so that you might get 2 in a row, you might get number 1 and then number 4. You just don't really know what's going to happen, and that's half of the fun of it. So we have these all the way over here, and I'm going to go here. I want it moving there, and I want it even further over to the right. It doesn't really pick that up, so I'm going to go x 400, y negative 14. That works well. And we want it to glide over to the other side, and that is about negative 450. And 1 second is going to be way too short, and I was playing around with this before, and about 24 seconds seemed to keep up with the ground and seemed to be about right. So let's see how this looks. Oh. Perfect. That looks good. And again, we're gonna kind of get this guy out of the way too, so we don't have to worry about that. And now once it gets all the way over here, we're done with it. So we just want to delete that clone. So if I go down here and just delete it, we're going to be done with it. Now, what we want to do is we want to keep on creating these clones so we want to have a bunch of pipes going. We don't just want to have one and then wait for the next one and then wait for the next one, because that just doesn't look very good. So I am going to use random again, and this time we're going to wait. I'm going to pick a random number. It's between wait 5 and 9 seconds. So that you might get too close together. You might get some further apart. They might be in the middle. The point being is that it just looks more random and it's less repetitive than if it's just a static number every single time. And then it's just going to create a clone. So we're going to make another one of these pipes, and I want to do this forever. So when the green flag is clicked, forever, it is going to wait a random amount of time between 5 and 9 seconds, and then it is going to create a clone of itself. So and then when it creates a clone of itself, it's going to go back up to this code. When it starts as a clone, picks a random costume and goes from there all the way over to there. So let's see what this is like. Again, we don't have to worry about that pipe on the right. You can see it's switching from, see, that's an extremely difficult one for us, so got a little unlucky. Right now it doesn't matter because we could go through it because there's no code set to it. And so on. One thing I do want to do is I want to make this bird smaller because that's quite difficult right now. All right, that should make it a little easier. All right, and now that we have done that, we want to actually make this game challenging. So we want to have, if Flappy is touching either the ground or the pipes, we want the game to be over. So I am going to go here, and when the green flag is clicked, if touching Flappy, then we're going to broadcast. If you've seen my previous tutorials, we know about broadcast messages. Very useful for complex messages going across sprites. We're going to broadcast the game over script. We want that to happen forever. And oops, actually this should be when when I start as a clone. This is a little counterintuitive to what we've been doing, because now since we're starting as clones and not necessarily when the green flag is clicked, when I start as a clone forever, broadcast game over. And we want the same thing, but over on this ground. Oops, you don't need to duplicate that. It's kind of an old habit of mine that should be broken by now, but it's not. And we have this over here and this over here. We just have to change this out of the clone and do green flag and green flag. So now we haven't done anything to happen when the game over message is broadcast. So let's upload the game over message. We have that, and when the green flag is clicked, we want to hide this message. However, when I receive game over, we want to show it. And we want to stop all, no, it's not there. Stop all of the scripts. So let's try this out. Boom, good. Why did it disappear? Now let's try it with the pipes. See, oh, I'm going so well. See what's going on. Then, no, oh no. Okay, I don't know why it makes those disappear, but whatever. Okay, and I feel like that should be not showing. I don't know why. But all right, that's fine. We'll hide that anyway. And now that we have done that, we need to find a way to keep score. So we need to make a variable, and we just need to call that score. And what we're going to do is that every time, actually what we're going to do first is make our black bars. I've been talking about this for a bit. We're actually going to do it now. Just go over, paint a new sprite, make sure you have that clicked, and make a box. And make sure you're all the way zoomed out or it won't work. And make a black box like that. And that will cover over the stuff we can't see. Also make it look more natural too. And just duplicate this. Perfect. And I'm going to start, Scratchy's a little far behind there. I want to start him earlier, so let's start Scratchy out here. Or not Scratchy, sorry, Flappy. There we go. And so now what we're going to do, every time that one of the pipes, if it gets past Flappy but is not yet here, we want to add a point. So I am going to when I start as a clone, this is going to be kind of a long statement. If my X position, being the pipe, if that X position is less than the X position of Flappy, and here, because if it was just less than that, it would just keep on adding up points all the time, because these just go back here. So if it is less, if the X position is less than the X position of Flappy, but it has to be greater than the X position of, this is Sprite 3, I believe, right? Yep, Sprite 3. We need to go back to operators, get an AND statement. Now it's a big Boolean statement there, but we have the if, when I start as a clone, if all of these conditions are met, then we just want to change score by 1. And in the beginning of the game, we want to set the score to 0. And we also want to wrap this in a forever loop. And let's try this out. Score's over here. It's a little low. Whoops. I got to do well in the game first. Okay, I apparently made this game a little too hard. That's the kind of thing you just have to tweak with, or you just have to tweak with and play around so you can get it good on your own. Let me try this one more time. That's the fun thing about making your own games. You could set the difficulty to whatever you want. So let's see if this passes here. Whoops, see, something's wrong here. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Okay. I forgot so it spends a good deal of time in between those two spots. So we just need to wait for 10 seconds or so that it has time to get back there. Let's try this one more time. One, perfect. Let's just try this other one too. Well, that seems to work, and that is Flappy Bird. Let me move that over a little bit. I just want to get the scroll out of there, the score, put that into a better spot. If you click on that, you could change how the variable is presented. You should be able to. There we go. And that's just a better kind of look for score. So now I have that, and there it is. If you want to add music to your game or use some more of these sprites that were in the sprite sheet, you can make this more complex than what it is. Or you probably want to ease off the difficulty on that too, or maybe you don't. Maybe you're just maybe you just like doing that. But however the case may be, you have completed Flappy Bird, and thank you for watching, and good job.